Welcome to part 3 of our March 22nd Lenten Bible study. In this part of the Bible study, I identify and discuss 3 themes in John 9. First, the glory of God is a living person, and a person's life is seeing God. Second, Jesus and Moses, distinguish, not divide. And third, walking in the light and trials. Our first theme, then, is the glory of God. The saying, the glory of God is a living person, and a person's life is seeing God, comes from Saint Irenaeus of Lyon, a bishop who lived about 100 years after Jesus' death and resurrection. Irenaeus said it to refute people who argued that God wasn't really present in Jesus' life. What Irenaeus meant was that God reveals himself in creation, especially through people who are made in God's image and likeness, according to Genesis 1. We see this saying by St. Irenaeus reflected in what Jesus says about why the man was born blind in John 9, that God's works might be revealed in him. Death and sin get in the way of us seeing God's revelation. And that's exactly what we see in this passage. In John 9, life is more than just being able to breathe and having a heartbeat. Life means being fully alive. So Jesus restores the man's physical sight, but that isn't just a physical remedy. Because the man sees, now he is seen. People who did not bother to look at him before now give him their attention. He has, it seems, been restored to human society, so that the man is now fully alive. This is what we call a holistic healing, a healing that covers all facets of human life. But it's not just that this man's life shows the works or the glory of God. It's also that his life consists in seeing God in the face of Jesus Christ. That is what true life is, according to Irenaeus. A person's life is seeing God. And again, we see that in this passage. At the end, Jesus takes his turn to ask the man some questions. He asks, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" And the man replies, "Who is he, sir?" And Jesus says, "You have seen him." We know this means with his eyes, which Jesus healed, but it also means by faith, because at once the man answers, "Lord, I believe." And the man worships Jesus. Life for this man is seeing God revealed in Jesus Christ. The holistic healing is complete. Our second theme has to do with the relationship between Jesus and Moses. Moses is a late entry in this passage. He is only mentioned in verses 28 to 29 when the Pharisees claim to be the disciples of Moses. But Moses overshadows the entire passage. There's the question of Sabbath practices and whether or not Jesus has violated them by healing the man. But even before that, from the first chapter of John, Moses has been in the background. We read in John 1:17, "The law indeed was given through Moses. Grace and truth come through Jesus Christ." Importantly, it is the Pharisees who divide Moses from Jesus. In their minds, you either follow Jesus or you follow Moses. And they have chosen, in their minds, Moses over Jesus. But in John's Gospel, and according to Jesus, we are to distinguish between Moses and Jesus, not divide them and set them against each other. If we set Moses against Jesus, we are following the Pharisees, who are blind to Jesus and also, therefore, to Moses. Yes, says this story, Moses and Jesus are different. But also, as John 1:17 says, what Jesus and Moses both give comes from God. And that means they have more in common than they have different. Our third theme has to do with walking in the light and trials. As I said with our first theme about the glory of God, Jesus heals the man to restore his life all the way. Sadly, however, this leads to his rejection. First, his community rejects him, in a sense, by not trusting his account of being healed by Jesus. Then, the Pharisees reject the man because he will not distance himself from Jesus. The more he grows in faith, the harsher his trials become. In 934, the Pharisees ask him angrily, "You were born entirely in sins, and are you trying to teach us?" And they drive him out of their company. It's interesting to compare this man's experience to the experience of the Samaritan woman in John 4. Both are restored to life, but one finds acceptance and the other rejection in their respective communities. What is the difference? The difference is that the Samaritans see Jesus for themselves, both by sight and by faith, but the Pharisees remain blind to Jesus. This story then serves as a kind of cautionary tale for Jesus' followers. Walking in the light does not mean trials will go away. In a sense, we could say that this is John's version of what we find in Matthew 16:4, as well as in Mark and Luke, that following Jesus means you must take up your cross and endure the trials that Jesus himself must endure, including the trial of being rejected.